can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title. It's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
WESN.
As we close out the week, there's a lot to get into, so no amount of monologuing here per se, but we will be hitting on a few stories that I haven't managed to get through before we welcome our guest, Ashraf Ali, this morning. So first of all, the situation with the tornadoes, well, the tornado in Westmoreland and the damage it caused, now I think leaves us with a bit of a quandary. Structural engineering experts has urged citizens to pay more attention to the integrity of their homes, particularly how the roofs are constructed, or maybe more specifically how it's attached to the home. This is one of those things perhaps that we've taken for granted. Now I think the question is, do you take on his advice and potentially spend more money to safeguard your property at an expense with the risk that you never necessarily might be in a situation where it would pay off? The flip side to that is, what if we do get a hurricane in TNT? Perhaps having stronger roofs attached to our homes. Generally, we don't have quite the same issue as North America with wooden construction of homes. Most of our homes are brick, whether it's cement blocks, clay blocks, or what have you, depending, different levels of reinforcement, I understand. But then now, if the roofs are generally attached relatively to the rest of the construction flimsily, if there's a natural disaster, a major storm or the like, it could then lead to significant property damage, which might not be necessary. So this is one of those things, as much as he's a structural engineer, but also the president of the Association of Professional Engineers, ICNTT, as much as he's urging people to potentially look at the integrity of the homes and with regards to the roofs, right? Because of a lack of regulation in certain home construction, right? Now people need to determine, okay, how much do I want to invest potentially to have that peace of mind? Not every situation is necessarily as bad off as what he fears. He did say that structures built with bank financing tend to be better regulated and require certification. So they perhaps might be a little bit better off, but this is just one of those things that you need to answer for yourself, I would imagine. Now, HDC is going to discontinue subsidiaries. The main thing about this is not necessarily about the services that they provided, because those will be refolded back into the HDC proper, but rather what's going to happen to the employees. And this is just another question with regards to the current administration. I guess you could say realigning priorities, and this was bound to happen. Now the question is, are we going to get the leadership to properly explain the vision, and how is the fallout going to be dealt with? Because not everybody agreed with how CPEP and URP was, the rectifying action was carried out, with the how it was carried out. Not if, just how. And a similar argument could be made here. The more people get into this uncertain circumstance of not having an income, of not having a job, you leave a situation where the bottom end of the economy now might drop out from underneath us. And significantly harm the foundation of literal money movement or money circulation in the economy. The big story, I guess you could say, one of the big stories, although it's not so much a fully matured story, is the fact that we have a new license. This was announced, a new OFAC license for the Dragon deal announced by the Attorney General in a press conference. A move which I find very interesting, because at a time when I'm already starting, and to some extent others may have picked up on this, where's the Prime Minister to make important announcements and to show leadership? Because this is not an AG function. So if it's not the Minister of Energy, one would think it would be the Prime Minister, but the AG did it. And I do wonder why that decision was made. And perhaps it might be a minor point to a lot of people, but I am curious about it because to some extent I think this might be a clue to some sort of inner workings. I just don't know what with regards to Cabinet. Now, the deal itself, former Energy Minister MP Young described it as provisional and got into a back and forth, or maybe so much of he said, she said, with Minister Monilal. And I do believe, though, calling it provisional is correct, because according to the AG, this is just a 6-month license. This is the first phase, and it's a tiered approach by which TNT has to meet certain benchmarks, which, and this is how it's reported, which would give the U.S. certain benefits through U.S. companies. I think there will be a group of people who might not like how that's phrased or what that implies. I don't necessarily care quite that much, at least when juxtaposed with having some sort of larger scale energy deal like potentially the Dragon deal actually go through. But it's just a 6-month provisional license, I guess. That's the words that Stuart Young used. I think that is, as a descriptor, appropriate, meaning that there's no guarantees yet. The shoe could still drop off the foot depending on how the negotiations with Venezuela goes, and that's basically what this allows. That's the first step. Now the next step is to negotiate with Venezuela, and then I guess to meet whatever terms or conditions the United States is looking for. And Stuart Young has basically called out the government saying, what are the terms? Because when we were reluctant to speak detailed information about energy deals, the opposition UNC said, why are y'all keeping things secret? What are y'all trying to hide? And now, I guess you could say in a sense of irony, Stuart Young is using the opposition's arguments against him. That could be a double-edged sword, but let's just ignore, because they lost the election, so I guess you could say they were technically punished for their misdeeds. Let's ignore that part and go to the point of, to some extent, he is right. If you complain about the PNM doing it, why are you doing it yourself? And here's the thing. It could be because they are NDAs. It could be because not just to protect themselves, but all parties involved, also to protect the negotiation process itself. They don't want to or can't reveal certain information. And this is one of those things where I believe a true leader with great communication skills and an understanding of human psychology would be able to come before the country and explain all that and say at the time we had questions with regards to the PNM and the way how they handle things, and we didn't necessarily trust them. And now we understood that at least partially there were external reasons why they were handled such and such a way, although we would not necessarily say that it was the entirety of the explanation, and we would still want to find out from the PNM why they thought it was appropriate to handle it in such a way. Something along those lines. But we're not going to get that. I don't expect us to get that. That's not how our political situation operates, right? So until certain conditions are met for the US, this is only going to be a temporary first step. How are we going to get Venezuela to agree? I have no idea. Because meanwhile, and this is interesting, so apparently a lot of people were alarmed by a C-17 transport plane from the US Air Force coming into Piarco International Airport. This was apparently to pick up the body of an embassy employee. Now, I'm not entirely sure how necessary this was, because the remains of a foreign national, soldiers or whatever, they technically, to some extent, they can fly on commercial planes, but I guess perhaps maybe there wasn't an appropriate arrangement with the available carriers coming out of Piarco, and maybe that's why they sent the C-17, or maybe there was some other practical function. But in the article where I saw that, there was also an observation by some locals who has observed what I believe to be a Poseidon P-8 aircraft, which is an anti-submarine and aerial reconnaissance platform, basically flying overhead, right? This does make sense if the Americans are intent on tracking drug smuggling boats. We are the first chain in that leg, generally speaking, although it has been said some of those boats will bypass us and go to other islands, right? But that would be going directly into the path of the Americans. So to go eastward, at least to some extent, it'll be passing in and around us. Guyana would be further east, so there's necessarily no clear path for Venezuela to just head straight out through international waters. So now the American presence is more or less in our general area. There's also reports that the Americans are hoping to put a radar installation in Grenada, which might also then further help with surveillance of traffic in maritime waters in the southern Caribbean, or rather in the southern end of the island chain. And this is one thing where certain people are saying this could test CARICOM's unity. And I would argue that when it comes to security concerns and anti-crime concerns, there is no CARICOM unity. So at the end of the day, the EU is not a military alliance. There's a separate military alliance called NATO. Right? As much as the EU is getting involved to some extent, right? The G7 is not a military alliance. BRICS is not a military alliance. So let's not kind of look at certain communities, unions, or collection of states and say they are automatically supposed to be unified on everything. And yes, this could still cause further splits in CARICOM, but part of it is if Grenada thinks there is a need for certain things, we've reached the point where the states that would disagree with Grenada accepting an American presence on the island, they themselves cannot probably offer any alternative except for maybe trying to make overtures to a different foreign power, which has its own level of complications. At the end of the day, we all have our own agendas here in the Caribbean. We need to start thinking things through that lens. But what makes it interesting with regards to the whole international diplomacy side of the situation is that the Venezuelan opposition leader apparently has gotten the Nobel Peace Prize for winning recognition as a woman who, and it's not necessarily for her being a woman, I just want to make that clear, that's not what I'm saying, who keeps the flame of democracy burning amid a growing darkness. And I think they may have been looking at the fact that it seems as though the election was basically robbed, and it's not as though Machado called up our people to say we must fight this physically with violence, right? Now, one could argue the capacity for the opposition to rally a sort of violent response might not be there. But somehow she's managing to keep democracy alive in a way. To what degree we could probably, disagree on, debate. I myself don't really know, right? It could be a major way because potentially by what little we know, and it's probably too little to say for certain, the opposition would have won the election. Which would be very interesting that happened, given the suppression of the opposition in Venezuela. So that colors probably a lot of the negotiations that will go on, because how will the Maduro regime view this Nobel Peace Prize and the message it sends to the international community about Venezuela? Will he view it as an insult? Will he be more sensitive to it? I have no idea, right? But we're still waiting to see, is America going to pull the trigger, have a military buildup, and intervene in Venezuela in a significant way? I don't know if this Nobel Peace Prize might be an indicator that at least there's some parts of the international community that's saying Maduro bad, Machado good, get him out of there. Which, again, is not necessarily automatically a good thing, an easy thing, or a sure thing that it will work. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get into some more of the topics today, including a story I haven't touched on yet. Been saving it for Mr. Ali, so hopefully I don't necessarily misconstrue important details after this show. Michael Small, we'll be right back after this.
The season of lights is bright and tasty with Royal Castle's delightful veggie burger made with a healthy and nutritious patty. It's great on its own or in a combo with one side and a 16-ounce drink. So whether it's lunch, dinner or a snack, Royal Castle's veggie burger fits right in with your fasting and festivities. Happy Diwali from Royal Castle.
I had this accident last year, so it is more convenient for me now to move about with the car, so I can move about to the lanes properly. Here is the only place I can shop conveniently with my budget. Everything I get it here at a convenient price. I just get specials on butters and whatever, so it will be convenient for me. Their prices is very low compared to other supermarkets. It's a really nice place to shop.
Diwali time again. Come to Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan for all your Diwali essentials. Get your clay diyas, cotton wicks, floating wicks, beautifully decorated imported diyas, and now in stock, all long-lasting, easy lighting wax diyas. Fasting? We have frozen vegetarian meals, exciting Indian spices and grocery items, decorated mithai boxes, prasad bags, freshly ground elaichi powder, and paper sohari leaves. And don't forget our popular tasty mouth-watering mithai. We have simple Diwali Puja guides on CD with a Puja handout, and our helpful staff will assist you with all the required ingredients to perform your Diwali Puja. Get great deals on lantern decorations, electric diya string lights, and Happy Diwali decorations. Visit us at the corner of Watt Street, Curep, or at St. Ives Street, Chaguanas, opposite the Charleville taxi stand, or call 663-6084. Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan. It's a family tradition, serving the nation and Dharma. Lakshmi Mata's divine blessings to all. For your convenience, both branches are open on Sundays until Diwali.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios, but they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
My name is Dr. Joanne Williams-Carroll, and I am the Director of Behavioral and Mental Health at the Community Hospital. At the Community Hospital, we believe in nurturing mind, body, and soul. Through our counseling and chaplaincy program, we will provide you with support and strength you need to help with your mental and emotional well-being. Give us a call.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
I'm back here on talking about the WSND Content Capital Show. Michael Small, joined by disaster management experts and, well, soon to be retired Inspector of the TTPS, Ashraf Ali.
Morning, Sean. So, how is your budget feeling?
The question is, what do people want to prioritize, right? And I've been saying for the last maybe week and a half to 2 weeks, don't necessarily make the mistake of thinking, oh, crime is down, so maybe we don't have to spend money on national security anymore. I'm saying, no. Invest in the things that we know we should have anyway, right? And make sure that the criminal justice system, at least resource-wise, is good. And if you could maybe, well, we're under state of emergency, so legislative fixes might not necessarily be needed right now. But the point is, we have all the things that we have to have, clean up all the things that we can clean up within this year, so that the gains made from January till now doesn't just disappear once the state of emergency goes away and the American blockade of drug smuggling goes away and other factors go away, right? Because I don't know if we could depend or rely on the current crime statistics levels to continue without saying, no. What is the follow through, right? It's almost like if this was a battle, time to commit some reserves to finish off the opponent, if that makes sense. Commit to victory as opposed to, well, it looks like we're winning. We could step off the gas and hope that the other guy doesn't lap us all of a sudden.
Well, the interesting thing is that when you use the word crime, and the question is that as we discuss later, it's really crime down.
Right.
Right, but I know you have a very hot topic, I just say.
Yeah, I didn't speak about it yet for the week, but of course, or in any significant way, I believe the Minister of Housing was rearrested. Now, he is still, as of this morning, the Minister of Housing. It's one of those things where there's nothing to necessarily necessitate his firing as minister. Even Faris Awari, in the opposition press conference, said, innocent until proven guilty.
So I did a little research, because I was really, it was really interesting to know that based on this rearrest, I mean, you hear a lot of things, so I did in fact inquire from some other individuals, but based on what they are indicating, they are indicating, and I'm talking to persons who are much more knowledgeable in this area than myself, is that there is no need for the individual for the Prime Minister to make any rash decision as to remove him from office. No, the issue is there is no need for it. The question is whether or not, from the perspective of transparency, how the Prime Minister mentioned that if any of her cabinet members does anything out of the ordinary, I just using that word,
right.
Hard action will be taken against the individual. Now, the question is that, so I could use that to say that this is not something that they did now. This is something that was there before.
Yes.
The individual would have won their matter on the first occasion, the matter was...
it was dismissed?
Either it was dismissed or whatever the circumstances was, but they didn't proceed any further. The DPP decided, they went back again on the relay charges. So I'm saying it's not something that happened. No, so to put the Prime Minister on the context of what she said about the administration, no. In my opinion, I believe whatever the administration does, no, she will take certain actions. This particular case went before the court. It was dismissed. Person was recharged. Innocent until proven guilty. On the first occasion, nothing came out of it. On the second occasion, we'll have to wait.
Because somebody brought up the point that before the matter was dismissed the first time, he was selected as a candidate to go up for election. So it wasn't as though he was cleared, and then the UNC, under its political leader, Kalma Sabisasa, said, okay, now you could be a candidate for MP, for a constituency. No, it seemed as though they were confident at the time. But I guess part of the question is, how do you view the precedent that is set? Because now the opposition tried to argue, well, look, when Marley McDonald was charged, you know, certain things was done to fire her or to whatever. I think eventually she was fired 3 times before however that had unfolded. And then the partnership also had a history of it.
So on the first occasion with Miss Marley McDonald,
okay,
right? The Prime Minister did in fact stand up and said that nothing was wrong, right?
I can't remember
The
fully.
Prime Minister did not take any actions immediately.
Right.
So they didn't take any action. They stood by. As the matter progressed, and how the matter progressed, and where the matter turned out to be, actions was taken. Right? So if you want to go if you want to say one side did one and the other side did one, and they talk about precedents set across the board,
right.
I'm simply saying that innocent and proven guilty. I understand that people were saying integrity and morality and all of this with respect to the office holders and the position in the line. But allegations are allegations, and I'm simply saying that based on this, I am not taking any sides, right? Whether the individual, whatever decision that the Prime Minister chooses to make with her cabinet, that's her decision. Good. So whatever decision, the consequences of that decision, she and her cabinet will face the consequences, and the public will scrutinize it together with the opposition as they continue doing right now. But I'm still saying innocent until proven guilty, right? And if someone was rearrested and on the first occasion they didn't have sufficient evidence or whatever the case may be in matter of thing, on their rearrest, let's see what the situation is. What is going to be the outcome? Now, whatever decision she makes, that's her decision. But I'm still saying that everybody is entitled to a fair trial, innocent until proven guilty. And we continue saying somebody is innocent until proven guilty.
Yes. No, and that's the flip side to it. It is a bit of a catch-22, right? You're damned if you do, you're damned if you do, in a sense. Because if he was fired as a minister, couldn't that potentially influence proceedings? Because people might think, oh, you see, he has to be guilty, otherwise why would she fire him? So the court of public opinion might take that as confirmation. While there are people in the public saying, well, no, if he's under suspicion, he needs to... In fact, I think it was Dr. Raghunath that might have said, you know, in the past there was a situation where if you are accused of something, well, you go off and clear your name and then come back, right? And not necessarily just stay in your portfolio doing what you're doing. But the flip side to that is if you're fired, like I said, some people won't view it as, well, I'm going to clear my name. Some people will say, oh no, there must be smoke, there must be fire there.
So do we have, and I continue to say, are we mature enough in our politics that if allegations are made, whether warranted or otherwise, that we are mature enough as a country and individuals within the parliament to step aside and deal with your situation? Or if we stand firm and say, I am innocent, and I stand firm to defend myself, because at the end of the day, defending your name and integrity at the same time, you have the public opinion about the individual in that entire cabinet, in that administration, and how they perceive the entire cabinet to be, which is unfair. So you take one situation and they blame the entire cabinet. It's the same thing when the same thing happened with the previous administration. Yes. So this is to determine whether or not we see ourselves mature enough as a cabinet to make decisions of that nature, or mature enough as a public to look at certain situations like that and don't just judge. I listened to a lot of comments about what they should do and what they shouldn't do and how they should deal with this and how they shouldn't deal with it. Sometimes it's very difficult to even make a decision on one side.
Based on what you know, would a case like this been an investigation conducted by the Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau, or was it some other of the TTPS?
It would have fallen in the category because it was based on the information coming. It was a trying to mislead or how you should defraud, right?
Because the claim was he didn't sell the car, I believe it was. He was still claiming ownership while somebody else was driving the car, right? Because if the car was sold, then he would have had to pay the taxes that he was exempted from.
So taking that incident totally out of the table, because we're not going to discuss that.
Right.
So I put it off the table immediately. In Trinidad and Tobago, there are many instances where someone goes to, people sell vehicles, and the vehicle has not been transferred, and the other person is driving the vehicle.
Right.
So I am simply saying, it is not an isolated situation, or to read a red flag. It has been happening in Trinidad and Tobago for a number of years, and because of the enforcement and some of the things that happen in licensing department, that we are accustomed dealing with it.
Now the reason why I brought up the ACIB is because former Commissioner Griffith actually agreed with the decision by the government to take that bureau out from the TTPS and put it under the AG's office, right? That's what the current government, alongside the reshuffling of cabinet responsibilities, did that. And he pointed to things like, well, you would have thought on the TTPS it would have been more independent and free from political interference, but that wasn't the case. And I find that interesting. The reason why I bring that up, or maybe, you know, as much as, as you could speak on that, is when this started, it wasn't as though it was the same party in power who had someone that was under arrest for a situation. Right. Now, his political party is in power. He's a sitting minister. There will always be, and you don't have to be a PNM or a supporter or a UNC hater. It could be either party. Once the party in power has a minister that's arrested, there will always be people who will have doubts that the system will be able to objectively treat with that situation.
So that could go on both sides. You have pros and cons on both sides. The argument could be made that if it's under the umbrella of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, it could be influenced, right? The investigation could be stymied along those lines. If it's under the AG's office, it could be influenced, it could be politically motivated. Yeah. My question is now, remove those two entities. Are we saying at this point in time that the ACIB, the head of the ACIB, the entire unit that is polygraphed, I can tell you,
right,
is polygraphed, and fully polygraphed, I might add, have been involved in a lot of high-profile, white-collar crimes investigated. Are we saying at this point in time, whether it's under the commissioners, under the TTPS, or whether it's on the AGs, that the unit itself this particular unit, we don't have confidence in the capabilities and the integrity of this unit?
Well, one of the explanations Gary Griffith gave was that resources, I think, they were stymied by a lack of resources or something like that.
Exactly.
Right? But then, I mean, this is just one of those things where I think there is no, and it might be hard to do so, but the system doesn't suggest any sorts of checks or balances to ensure that bad faith conduct will not be done. I guess that's the problem, because how independent could it be?
And that is a risk we continue to face, and we keep harping on that aspect of it, that we do have independence of investigations, that the investigative units cannot be objective. They have to be biased, and I'm saying no, they don't have to be. I believe that that unit has the...
Well, this is assuming the unit is conducting this case.
No, even though
but you're speaking generally
I'm just speaking on the unit, because I'm removing the two entities where they lie under, whether they lie under the TTPS under the TTPS umbrella or the AG's office. It still comes down to the integrity of the officers who are in the unit and the head of that unit.
Well, the unit doesn't have to lack integrity. You just need to have a bad apple.
And so then we can't be going around the place and saying that every single unit that we have that's supposed to have a level of integrity, we only saying everything is a bad apple, is a bad apple. Then all we companies, we just keep on going around, you keep spinning in a circle and saying that every one of our institutions is corrupt. Are we completely going to say that everyone is corrupt?
Well, I hate to say this, but I do think to the public, one of the issues would be the fact that, look, there would be these high-profile cases, and none of them seem to go anywhere. So then now it's a bit of a situation of, well, were these legit charges? Were these trumped up charges? Did the case fall apart? Why did the case fall apart? Like, there's so many possibilities of why it didn't go on.
Good.
But the problem is the fact that and I say the high profile to mean the ones that are public, there might be cases that are successful that the public doesn't hear about, but the public won't be able to include that into their data set, right? If most of the results or all of the results, because I can't really think of a high-profile case where the public will point to and say, yes, that's an example of how it needs to be done.
So
if it's all, the perception is all negative.
Good. So then here we come back to the conversation we are having, we continue to have, how we communicate. So these public interest matters, you don't get follow-ups on them. You don't get information as to the progress of the matter. If the matter has reached a position or a state where, let's hypothetically, there is nothing else that can be done, or there is no evidential value that you could proceed to lay a charge, that does not say that something didn't happen. No. You must always remember that. In investigations, it does not say that something didn't happen. It just means that, yes, up to a point, I have evidence, but the evidence I have might just be circumstantial. It might not be sufficient enough to go beyond the threshold for me to prove or reach the criteria for a charge to be laid. Now, when someone has been charged, somebody has been charged and a matter has been before the court, it still does not say that person is guilty. It all simply says that we have sufficient evidence to bring a case against an individual. It will be argued in court now for the legal aspects of it, and all the evidence will be tested in court to determine whether or not the proof to substantiate or the burden of proof is sufficient enough for the person to be convicted or otherwise. That is a decision of the judiciary to deal with now, right? Where both sides presents the case and the matter will be dealt with if it's by a jury or by the magistrate or a judge. But in these circumstances, I'm simply saying that the ACIB, from what I know of the ACIB, they are very competent, and I believe that no matter on which side they are, right? If they are moved back to the AG's office for the purpose of resource management and for them to be able to have much more accessibility to resources to conduct their investigations, that is a plus. If it is moved for the reason of believing that if they're under the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, they are not objective, right? Or they could be corrupted, that is a minus. Because it speaks volume to the unit itself.
Well, I want to wrap this part of the conversation with going to the court of public opinion, which at times could be random, unreasonable, unfair, highly speculative, and usually because it's based on limited information, right? And it's emotionally charged. The fact that the court of public opinion might actually be impacting our public discourse maybe too much. Is it a sign that we are lacking in leadership and communication? Or to put it another way, in order to minimize the negative aspects of the court of public opinion, because at the end of the day, the public is going to have its opinion,
sure.
Right?
Must.
We need better leadership with proper communication to sort of manage expectations of the public, in order to prevent wild theories from holding sway. Because this is a situation the Prime Minister finds himself in. We've basically said there's no real clear-cut, obvious answer on what to do. There's negatives on either side of the coin on the decision, right? You fire him, there's negatives seen with that. You keep him, there's negatives seen with that. And at the end of the day, innocent until proven guilty is also, not just in this case, but in many cases, a situation where there's negatives both ways with regards to how you treat the person. Is it fair for them to still have their freedom? Why punish them before they're convicted, right? So should we be looking to our leaders more to kind of give us a better starting point on issues like this and to manage issues like this?
Well, it all depends on how we look at it. Leadership and communication goes hand in hand, because how you communicate as a leader determines, like, sometimes how public opinions operate. We tend to want to give our lead. We tend to want leaders to say what we want them to say. And if it doesn't come out the way that we want them to, if it suits us, we don't always have a problem with it. We always have a problem with it, right? So we may not like how we communicate information, but at the end of the day, leadership is dependent on how you communicate also. So strong leaders, sometimes you have strong leaders who are not communicating as much as they would like them to communicate, because they are strong in what they say and they are vocal. They make a decision and that's it. Then there are some who are more expressive. So who are we imaging our leaders against, or comparing them against? One or the other. And for the last 18 months, and we keep operating in this capacity. We have commissioners that we compare commissioners to former commissioners. Each commissioner is different in their style and their approach on how they deal with certain things, with their experience and everything, and their mindset and how they deal with certain things. Their communication style might be different, but we keep comparing them. Same thing with our prime ministers and our ministers. We keep comparing them with each other. We keep comparing this administration with the past administration, and I continue to say the opposition has to realize they did not win the election not because of anything other than the democracy of Trinidad and Tobago. It's the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago who choose one of the other. You have to reflect why you was not chosen to continue. By saying, by you coming to tell me I made a bad decision by choosing Sean over, you chose you over me. Does it change the fact that I chose you? The problem is that I had to have some reflection and introspection. Why did they choose Sean over me? Is it something I did wrong or I didn't do? or I did, or I supposed to do, and then, so they had to do an introspection. But the introspection is not happening. They're blaming. You all, and I keep on hearing that. This is what you vote for. So take away, this is what you want, this is what I do, this is what this. Then, listen, if we keep going on that from now until the next 5 years, we would end up in the same position as we are in right now. This budget coming up here is a very critical budget. It's going to set the precedent for the next 5 years. Right? And I really hope, we're not in a good place. We're not in a good place financially, economically. Right? So I will just transition straight into the question where we talk about crime. Yes, the murder rates are low. But when you look at the number of incidents taking place in an SOE, we wonder really if it's really low.
Well, stick up in there. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll switch gears a bit, get into the whole topic with regards to increasing murders or the spike. Let's call it a spike for now. But also, I guess you could say further indicators of how crime may or may not be treated moving forward. Stay tuned. This is Talking About on WSN. Sean Michael Small, Ashraf Ali. We'll be right back after this.
The season of lights is bright and tasty with Royal Castle's delightful veggie burger made with a healthy and nutritious patty. It's great on its own or in a combo with one side and a 16-ounce drink. So whether it's lunch, dinner or a snack, Royal Castle's veggie burger fits right in with your fasting and festivities. Happy Diwali from Royal Castle.
I had this accident last year, so it is more convenient for me now to move about with the car, so I can move about to the lanes properly. Here is the only place I could shop conveniently with my budget. Everything I get it here at a convenient price. I just get specials on butters and whatever, so it will be convenient for me. Their prices is very low compared to other supermarkets. It's a really nice place to shop.
In Hinduism, cow's milk is revered, and from the finest milk comes our ghee. When offered into the sacred fire, cow ghee carries our prayers to the deities, unlike processed vegetable ghee. From your devotion to your delicious dishes, you can trust Anchor Cow Brand Ghee. For all occasions, use the best ghee. Enjoy the best food and delicacies, and have the best Diwali with Anchor Cow Brand Ghee.
It's Diwali time again. Come to Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan for all your Diwali essentials. Get your clay diyas, cotton wicks, floating wicks, beautifully decorated imported diyas. And now in stock, our long-lasting, easy-lighting wax diyas. Fasting? We have frozen vegetarian meals, exciting Indian spices and grocery items, decorated mithai boxes, prasad bags, freshly ground elaichi powder, and paper sohari leaves. And don't forget our popular, tasty, mouth-watering mithai. We have simple Diwali Puja guides on CD with a Puja handout, and our helpful staff will assist you with all the required ingredients to perform your Diwali Puja. Get great deals on lantern decorations, electric diya string lights, and Happy Diwali decorations. Visit us at the corner of Watt Street, Kirep, or at St. Ives Street, Chaguanas, opposite the Charleville taxi stand, or call 663-6084. Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan. It's a family tradition, serving the nation and Dharma. Lakshmi Mata's divine blessings to all. For your convenience, both branches are open on Sundays until Diwali.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
All right, welcome back to Talking Point. And as we have Ashraf here, I want to get into the latest developments with regards to the crime situation, which I started off the week saying, let's not think everything is looking so great that we start to do defense cuts, defense spending cuts, and we kind of lose ground, all the ground that we gained. And then, of course, we had the spike in murders happening. There was also reports on police shootings going up. So there's, first of all, just in general, I think there's still this kind of sentiment of tougher on crime, right? And of course now, perhaps maybe people were willing to walk back from that because the murder rate was down, and that's what a lot of people wanted the police to be tough on, more than anything else. But then also they're seeing the Americans kind of shooting boats seemingly without any jurisprudence or what have you. And they're like, I don't like how that looks. Maybe there is limits on how tough we should be on crime, right? Missiles might be the limit, right? But of course, we had a spike in murders now, and it's been pointed out again, police fatal shootings have gone up. Now, I'm not entirely sure if the public minds that police fatal shootings have gone up because we don't necessarily have any sort of more detailed analysis of the individual cases, right? It just could happen that in all 60 whatever of those cases for this time period that was assessed compared to last year and the year before, the police were successfully confronting violent criminals more accurately, whereas 2 years ago, they weren't necessarily finding any criminals to confront, so they didn't have a violent confrontation that led to their shooting. What do you take? Well, you could pick where you want to start in this whole thing.
Right. So I want to start the fact that we're in a state of emergency. State of emergency and the extended powers gives you the opportunity to enter premises without a warrant. That alone can be directly related to the number of shootings. Because police don't need a warrant. Mm-hmm. I don't need to knock on your door and say I have a warrant to come in your house.
Well, do you just open the door or do you knock?
So you don't knock.
You don't knock.
So you don't need a warrant. So because you don't need, and I'm saying, a warrant needs to be presented to an individual. In this state of emergency, I don't need to give you to tell you I have a warrant to come into your house. I can enter your house. So because now I didn't think about this before, but we're venturing into the territory where it's debatable in the states of the knock warrants versus no knock warrants, right? So under state of emergency, effectively, it's kind of like a no knock situation. We don't need a warrant,
right?
So I don't have to knock on your door, tell you, so
right.
I don't have to knock on your door and present a warrant to you.
But beyond that, you don't have to knock on the door and kind of present to you an opportunity to communicate, surrender, or anything like that.
Because the state of emergency gives you an opportunity, or gives give you additional powers to enter premises without a warrant. That doesn't mean that's going to run into somebody's house just so like a madman.
Right.
But because of that, and I'm saying because of that, this may be a factor with the number of shootings. Possibly a factor. There's no correlation. There's no evidence that could support it. But just be a possibility that because of that, this drive, the drive that of the more operational and intelligent tactics are being utilized, going to several houses now, the likelihood of confrontation has been elevated. So there's much more confrontation, and the confrontations are fatal in these circumstances. Now, it could also be that because of the criminal elements understands that there is a state of emergency, and they expect police to come to their house, or they believe police could come into the house, some person decide to confront the police. That is a detrimental decision.
Right.
And the commissioner did in fact say, and that if these individuals, the criminal elements, decides to confront law enforcement, they will respond accordingly.
Because generally speaking, like there was that incident where the police officer was in a restaurant sitting down and he tried to shoot the assailant and ended up getting...
A couple of years
ago. And there been I remember seeing video of another police officer, essentially, I don't think he died, but he got hit. He didn't hit the assailant, or at least the assailant I don't think was captured, right? Or reported wounded. So there are situations where random encounters with individual random officers, criminals might take for granted, oh, we could beat them in a gunfight. But when police are coming to confront you, arrest you, you're under suspicion of committing some sort of crime or offense, it's not going to be two random Joes with just their pistols coming in to say, hey, look, we just happen to see this guy, let's think. No, it'll be a team, they'll be well armed, they'll have backup. It'll be multiple guys, because the idea would be, and I agree with this idea, because this is a lot of jurisdictions do this for a reason successfully. If we show you overwhelming force, you with your little handgun should not think, oh, this is a fight I could win.
Think twice.
Right? You should think twice. If it was just one cop, then it would be like, oh no, I could kill him and then move on, and in that heightened sense, maybe further violence elsewhere, well, I might as well just start offing people because of whatever craziness mindset I have. But it seems as though somehow criminals in TNT, they still think they could, according to reports, they shoot first. They still think somehow this is an opportunity to escape, to win. I don't know.
And that is where we are. And there's a lot of speculation as to how these incidents take place, whether the police shoot first or the criminals shoot first. And that's where the argument of the body cameras was supposed to be for the level of transparency.
Well, but I also want to ask, there are circumstances where, technically speaking, the police can be justified in shooting first. Because if a criminal starts, like, he has a gun on his hip and he draws it and he looks like he's going to shoot a police officer, you're not going to wait to see, or did he fire around?
That is why every police-involved shootings, whether it is fatal or otherwise, it is dealt with individually.
Right.
Because each scenario, each incident may be unique in its own way to justify, and the investigation is to determine whether or not the police was justified in the actions that they took, whether the use of force was appropriate in the circumstance. So if we keep judging every one of them and throw them, if we take all of them and throw them in the same barrel, and we say, okay, well, we have over 60-something police-involved shootings, that doesn't give the true reflection of the incidents, because each one of them have to be considered by themselves. If it is, out of those numbers, there is a lot of question as to the legitimacy of these shootings, then I could understand where then I might say, okay, listen, we need to check something more. And I believe that the commissioner, in his wisdom, is along the same line, because he does not see this as, based on what he said, he doesn't see it as alarming at this point in time.
Right.
Right? And we have to look at it because he has more information than I would have, right? So I will trust his judgment in what the information that he has, because all the investigation has to come to him in any event. So I will take that into consideration. The public always wants information as to the circumstance in the shooting, no matter what. And the problem is that no matter what we say now, the bad experiences in the past, it interprets how somebody takes information now. You could be as transparent, so we could be as transparent as we can be within the sharing of information, and you will still have persons who will not believe the information and always believe some conspiracy because of some past experiences that he had.
Well, I mean, not too recently, you had the son of a woman who died, who is disputing the incident, right? The police reports. But then there's also a father of someone who was actually directly shot by the police and killed, a former police officer who is disputing the version of events. And at that point, it's one of those things where, unfortunately, there's certain preconceived notions or stereotypes that the public will kind of turn to. If you see a civilian that looks like they're not involved in anything, be the target of a hit, the first thing you ask is what were they involved in. If you hear the parent of someone shot by the police saying he was a good boy, the first thing you say is they are always good boys, right? And there's a certain amount of cynicism now where we just kind of stereotype certain cases, and it potentially harms getting to the truth, because at the end of the day, just the father saying, well, I don't believe it, is not really, whether you want to believe him or not, it's not like it's something practical that we could say, all right, let's work from this position and see what we could get here.
Sometimes when you listen to the narratives, and this is not to be insensitive to anyone who lost their lives in police-involved shootings, so this is not to be insensitive at all. You hear, this is now how it happened, or from my information, this is not what happened. But you don't get diversion from any witnesses coming forward and say, well, okay, will you tell me what happened?
Right.
It's always about, this is not what it happened. Well, the police has asked you, well, if you are contesting the way the incident took place, come forward and give me your version, or give us the versions that you all know, so we can take that into consideration. But you always get one side and saying, they always keep on saying, this is not what happened. This is not what happened. He didn't do this and he didn't do that. Well, if you know all of that, bring it to the fore, because I don't think our officers in Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, all the officers in Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, just comes to work every morning and say, I'm going to take a firearm, I'm going to look to shoot and kill somebody today. I don't think anybody, and anytime an officer does that, that officer does not deserve to be in the organization because he has some psychological issues.
So that's the thing. I think even when people do try to give an alternative, it's usually not very deep, and it doesn't necessarily account for, well, what actually happened, as you pointed out, right? Here's the thing. There is a situation that to some extent kind of proves, yes, the possibility of police kind of acting wrong can happen, but then also that the police could self-correct the situation. And that's what happened in the shooting death of PC Gilks. It was a situation, it didn't take the public to say, no, this didn't happen, and to disprove it. The system disproved it on its own, saying the ballistics suggested the version of events did not go through. So as much as the individual officers involved have to answer for what they said, the system did not try to cover it up to the credit of everyone else involved.
Exactly. And for the last number of police-involved shootings, I don't have the correct statistics, but from what I would have been reading is that the vast majority firearms were recovered.
Right.
If I want to stretch, like how a lot of persons like to stretch this narrative, that after the incident, the police bring a fireman and left it there. Ballistics is going to sort that out, right? Fingerprints on the weapon is going to sort that out. Are we saying, and that is what I'm saying, the level of trust and confidence we have in the police service is low because of not what is happening now, but historically what is taking place.
It builds up.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that the commissioner is trying to fix. And I'm hopeful that going forward, things will change in the mindset. But this is something that I'm saying that when it comes to police-involved shootings, the level of transparency, there's always a big question mark behind it, because the need for the body cameras is very, very critical at this point in time.
There's also a second part of the body cameras, and we'll discuss about that. There's also a comment, but before all that, we do have to go Martin on the line. We'll take the call now. Good morning, caller. You on here?
ESP Ashra Valley.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
This morning, I'm going to practice my current position as the Fifth Estate armchair journalist. And we are all talking about crime. We are all having problems of it. But I think people are deflected from one of the key issues that have prevented the TTPS from being, as they say, protect and serve with pride. One of the main elements to mitigate crime is an effective, efficient TTPS. I had the cause to interact with DCP Benjamin 2 days ago on another program. That is why I'm saying I'm an armchair journalist. And I posed the question to him about outstanding investigation. And I called out three that is all over the place. The merit list, the Brent Thomas issue, and there is another one. And his response was very, very defensive. He said, sir, not because you're not hearing of it, we are not doing the investigation. White collar crime takes time. I listened to him. The next day, I interacted with an ASP Pitt who wants to become the president of the Welfare Association. And I posed the other question to him. I said, so what are you doing as a person representing a large portion of the PPS to get it to a position we as citizens are going to be confident about it? Within 24 hours, I listened to a former commissioner of police, Gary Griffith, on another program. I didn't interact with him, but he threw the TTPS under the bus with respect to those investigations I asked DCP Benjamin about. He said, in the police service, there are officers, senior officers, who, and this is my word, deliberately suppressing the investigation. And he called out, he said, the Brent Thomas issue was an easy one. The merit list was an easy one where he did all the writing up and he handed another police commissioner to investigate it, the merit list. He said those were easy investigation to solve. And when he said that, he further indicate that a senior government official called him to basically intervene with the arrest of the person who is arrested now with respect to the car. He also said the EMM case, SRP case, you all know what I'm talking about. They basically spent a lot of money to investigate 3 additional, most likely political investigation. And he further said, a minister called him and tell him, hey, we're giving the police service 40 million and it has to be only spent on the on 3 investigations. One was the MBD, one of the investigations of the current Prime Minister. So we deflected, and the police service has to cleanse itself and has to do something to get rid of all those errant officers. And I'm going back to the day of policing. They're all over the place, hampering the progress of the police service. And I'm on board with the current Commissioner of Police, who said he's going to address the issue of our errant officers. We have too many of the police officers, and we're not being honest to ourselves. I'm going to have a nice morning.
Thank you, caller. Well, he said a lot. I can't say this for certain, but on the surface analysis of the 2 cases he mentioned, it does not make sense with regards to the merit list investigation and the Brent Thomas investigation. Shouldn't be that complicated it wasn't some external entity to the government that did whatever, particularly the Brent Thomas situation.
See, the thing about it is that I understand the perceptions of many persons, and it comes down to the fact that the level of transparency when it comes to these high-profile public interest matters, the extent to which we want information, because everybody wants information, but not all information is available, should be given out to everybody, right? So, but when you don't give information, it appears that you're not being transparent enough, right? And it becomes deflecting. So this is where you have our balance, is a balancing act as to how much you can share without interfering or prejudicing the investigation and the stage at which it is.
Well, we have Arima on the line, but stick up it on that, because that, I think that's something to explore. Arima, good morning. You on the air?
Morning, Sean Michael. Small to you and your guests.
Morning.
Morning.
Now, what I really came to, what I called to speak to you about today was the budget for money.
Yeah.
All right? And earlier on you mentioned what should be the priorities.
What I think.
For me, the economy, crime, education, health, in that particular order. And I say so, whoa.
Caller?
They're muted.
Right.
Hello?
Yeah, you get there, you go ahead.
John? No, I just got muted there. But you hear me now?
Yes.
Right, so as I was saying, right? With a deficit of about $11 billion for this current fiscal year, and with the ratings that we have where financing is concerned, I think the government had to look for ways to cut that down. And having promised this 10% to public servants, I think property tax will be back, but in a different form, and a different name, and a different value to be less, but it is necessary. I also see, I may be wrong, but the subsidies on cooking gas, water, electricity, and fuel to go. If not entirely, a portion of it had to go. So, Trinidad and Tobago had to do some, we the citizens had to do some adjustment. What I would like to see though, Carney had 77,000 acres of land. Part of which was given out to the workers as a package, and then we have the rest there. If we could somehow channel some of these CPEP on some of these forestry workers and get some greenhouses going, not just necessarily plant marijuana, you're not talking about food. Yeah, food-wise. And we try to inculcate it into the citizenry. They try to do away with the imported food and deal with the local food. Now, for me, recovery is going to take time. There's plenty baby steps that are involved. But the politicians have to show the will. And what I have seen for the past 4 months, I ain't digging it. I ain't seeing it at all. Because everything is a kind of hush, 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 hush. A non-disclosure agreement, something. We didn't put them there for any non-disclosure agreements with taxpayers' money. And I want to ask you this, because this question I'm bugging on. Now, the OFAC license is supposed to govern American companies going into Venezuela to mine for gas, right? Two scenarios arise here. One, now Ghana is taking out over 500,000 barrels of oil a day and they have no refinery. So that oil had to be shipped somewhere to be refined. So I am looking at Venezuela, could do that same thing with China or Russia or Iran. And the second thing I'm looking at, could Trinidad and Tobago negotiate with with non-American companies to go into that Dragon gas field? Because then the OFAC license will be null and void in my view. Because I find it hard to know that a sovereign country like ours, the Americans have to tell us what to do, when to do, how to do, why to do, with who. And we're not in their sovereign territory, we'll be in another man's hand. I listen off here for your comments and your responses. Thank you for the time. Have a good weekend, gentlemen. Stay safe.
Thank you, Colin. With that last part, the OFAC license is not just to say yea or nay to American companies. It will, OFAC enforces economic and trade sanctions. So now, depending on our agreements with the United States and how much we want to do business with them, not just in oil and gas, but in all aspects, if we want to do business with someone cut off, they might say, well, we'll cut you off too. No skin off our back, right? We can potentially negotiate with foreign companies. That is actually, generally speaking, not relevant. Although in this case, apparently, one of the things that has been said is America apparently for this license, and I don't necessarily know why, but America is supposed to derive some benefits. Now, I don't know if that means that if it's American companies specifically are supposed to directly benefit. I could just do a quick double check here on this, right? Or if it is benefits in some other ways politically, let me just say, which will give U.S. certain benefits through U.S. companies. So then, yes, it is that U.S. companies benefit. Don't know exactly what it means though, right? So in this specific case, we might need to go through some of the business through U.S. companies. But generally speaking, like when we were talking about OFAC before for the Dragon deal, the company I believe involved was Shell, which I'm not entirely sure if that's a U.S. company or a British company. I can't remember, right? So, British company, thank you. So, it's not so much about the work on the fossil fuels itself. The OFAC license is with regards to
service providers.
Well, to allow us to engage with Venezuela and not necessarily then come under fire, under sanctions ourselves, right? Because we'll technically, if we do it on our own, we'll be breaching their foreign policy. And again, it's a case of, yes, we're sovereign, we could do what we want. They're also a sovereign country, they could do what they want. We import all our food from them. We import a lot of things from them because they're the closest large market. We can import things from China and the like, but I don't think our economy could just overnight make that switch wholesale.
So true.
All right, there was a couple other things to get through. I think one of the things was, I'll just say this, economy is probably, in a vacuum, the best first step, because if you get the economy right first, you prioritize that first, you'll get more resources down the line for the other things. But crime is a pressing need now. So that's the catch, right? Which one do you really?
So then it might just be a possibility of, I mean, we are already in a deficit, and we had a deficit budget for a number of years now. We expect another deficit budget.
Yes.
So the deficit budget, in my unprofessional capacity, might simply mean just for stability purposes going forward. Mm-hmm. Because at this point in time, we can't have too much of a deficit because we're already in deficit. Mm-hmm. We're already minus, but we can't minus more than minus. We don't want to go minus more.
Yeah.
So
because if we keep going, it'll add up.
So even though we're in deficit, I am saying that deficit should not be beyond last year's the last fiscal package. It should be either within that or very close to that. That would be more or less saying that our economy is more or less stable with a deficit budget. I might be saying it wrong, but
I think I know what you mean. The problem is it a debt that we're carrying over, or is it more debt? Right. And the thing you want to avoid is more debt.
More. So if we carry over the same debt,
but the problem is,
but when we go with more, we have a little more problems.
Here's the trick: to carry over the same debt, it means the actual amount of money and the actual amount of new expenditure you have would to some extent be reduced. Because last year, if you had...
So that might...
Right, but you're thinking, all right, we'll stabilize.
Right. So in my analysis, based on, I'm not a financial expert or economist in any sort, you're stable, you know you have this debt, so our deficit budget going. Now we start to now, in the next fiscal year, cut some of the expenses,
like what you call them,
or some of our recurring expenses. Some things that we need to cut. We may have to, let's say, even if we talk about increasing the cost of fuel, not gas, not cooking gas or electricity or even our water supplies that we have to pay a little more in. Yes, they have the issue of the housing tax that we have to deal with to come back. The issue is not the housing tax before. It was the way it was structured and the inconsistencies in the comparison of who paying what and how you're paying it. That was a big issue with respect to that. So it can be established where you have to pay some tax because people will willing to be paying the taxes.
You mean property tax, just to be specific, right?
Yeah, it's a property tax. The property tax. Because when you look at what is happening with property tax, whether persons agree with it or not, when you have to do transactions with property tax, you have to show ownership by certain have certain documentation that I own this property, and property taxes are means to show that I have been there and I've been paying my taxes on this. Now, there's it's avenues to do, but we have to make the hard decision. Unfortunately, this administration has to make a hard decision in their very first term.
Yes.
Going for the next fiscal year, that certain things would have to be dealt with in terms of cost-cutting factors.
The thing is, property tax it was supposed to be for local government. One of the things that I was never totally satisfied with was, what about Tobago? Because in my mind, property tax could have also gone a long way to help Tobago at least have a little bit more revenue to deal with their recurring expenditure of similar items that local government have to deal with. It might not necessarily solve all their needs, but it's still a way, like how they wanted to get money to local government, to get money to the THA.
Agriculture is a means of generating forex as well as feeding your country. But it doesn't happen overnight. Because when you invest into food production, there is a time frame before you start to generate food, right? So yes, we may want to say that we're going into agriculture, but what is the buffer period that we have? Do we have a 6-month period depending on the crops that we're going to produce?
Right.
Whether what is going to be valuable? Because let's say we're using local crops, right? What is the local crop we're going to? Let me just use for discussion purpose that we're going to use cassava. Just using cassava. If you're planting cassava, 6 weeks, between 6 weeks to a year, based on the type of cassava that they're going to use. Then after you harvest that, are we going to sell all that cassava locally? Is that our consumption of cassava is such that we're going to be utilizing?
From what I understand, we import cassava, so there's some capacity.
So there's a capacity there.
Yeah.
No, we import cassava, but we also import cassava by products.
Yes.
Right? So are we going to convert? Are we going to make cassava flour? Are we going to use cassava in other areas? So when we look at food production, it is not about agriculture, the grain. We're talking about the entire process for agriculture, processing, packaging, using alternative products with it, because that is how the agricultural industry has to go. It has to work with the manufacturing and packaging industry at the same time.
I think agriculture as an industry, we don't necessarily have great leadership and direction and vision. But then here's another thing, because before we get back to because I wanted to go back to the crime talk, and we do have a comment on that. But one of the things you said about cutting the fuel subsidy, again, we kind of see things as, well, you're taken away from us and it's not popular. Well, we need to start viewing things. How do we shift Okay, with food, how do we shift our taste? But with transportation, how do we shift our modes? We've talked about mass transportation before,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
And that's the thing. If you have a fuel subsidy, because everybody drives cars, everyone has to be cheap, a bus and the fuel for a bus, especially for the larger buses, is way more cost effective than everybody having their own car and having to be fueled. It's just that now you have to invest in the bus service, though. You have to pay that upfront
so you have,
cost.
somebody else as well, that public transportation has to pick up that, that slack.
But we need to put more resources into it. But putting resources into it, it might seem as though, oh, you're spending money. But it is to spend money in order to potentially, as a society, save a larger amounts of money somewhere else.
Exactly.
Now, you did say how much can be shared with regards to certain investigations could be the issue. Because with the Brent Thomas situation, it should not be that complex in theory. Somebody ordered the police to go. Who ordered it? Is there documentation for that whole process of what happened? If there isn't, then you ask, then the question comes up, why? So it's a two-pronged thing. Either it's laid out on a silver platter, or what should be there is not there. And then now, depending on how far that part goes, the investigation gets more and more complicated. But the point is, it's not as though, well, it's some random criminal from who could be anywhere from half the country that committed this crime. It is, well, technically we have a very good starting point. And to the public's perception, if they don't necessarily get whatever information that could be gotten about this thing, to them, when Gary says somebody's timing the investigation, somebody is not revealing the information to the investigators, somebody is keeping things hush-hush, somebody's covering for the who knows who what. And it's hard to disprove.
And that is the reality of public perception, and when we fail to share as information to the public. And over the years, like I said, public interest matters are not brought to the attention of the public in the manner that we're supposed to. Now, I am hopeful that the Commissioner of Police, he said he wants to be transparent, and he will bring updates as it need be. Now, those two public interest matters that we're talking about needs to be aired out. Aired out does not always mean what you want to hear.
Now, let me just cut you right there. Let's just put up the comment really quick because it's pertinent to this. Has any police officer ever been charged for a bad shooting? And I believe the answer to this has been yes, but we just don't know it because it doesn't make the press, or it's not necessarily always revealed to the press.
Yes, officers have been put before the court for unjustified shootings.
And then the last thing, body cameras would help solve a lot of the uncertainty here. But I want to just add very quickly, the Minister of Homeland Security wants to charge minors as adults for certain things because a 13-year-old was involved in the drone operation to smuggle stuff into the prison.
Let's be careful. He said we should be considered charging or treating charging minors as adults. There's also the legislation existing to treat with children, minors. The issue here is when you look, if we could get these statistics to show that over the years, the number of homicides and shootings that have occurred, the ages of the suspects
were minors.
From the age 15, from as early as 15 years.
But I just want to say, if minors are involved in things like this, there's another layer of the need for police cameras, wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I agree.
All right, that's the show, folks. I want to thank the callers, thank the commenter. Thanks, Ashraf Ali, for joining me once again. Hopefully, we'll see how the budget unfolds. We'll have one more show, of course, before the budget. But until then, remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Stay safe. It's nice to be nice. Have a good weekend. Don't miss Andy Johnson. 10 questions coming up next. Until then, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
WESN
The season of lights is bright and tasty with Royal Castle's delightful veggie burger made with a healthy and nutritious patty. It's great on its own or in a combo with one side and a 16-ounce drink. So whether it's lunch, dinner or a snack, Royal Castle's veggie burger fits right in with your fasting and festivities. Happy Diwali from Royal Castle.